11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. We come to you live every day at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's 4 Pacific, and run it live on YouTube. We simulcast it over at gunchannels.com. We're watching the live chat from everybody that's watching us live over on Gun Channels. We take the audio when it's all over, make it a podcast, and post that on iTunes. We encourage everybody who's listening to the show now and in the future to leave us some feedback so we know who you are and where you're at, where you're listening. It also helps the show get recommended to more listeners, so we encourage everybody to share the show. Let other people know what we're doing out here, and we appreciate that favor. We have a bunch of hosts. 2 of us are here right now. Others will be joining today. We've got Dano jumping in from Illinois. Thanks for joining.
Yep, glad to be here.
I'm down here in Arizona. Smeggy will be jumping in. I'm not sure if Bob will. And then Z joins us a little bit later on from Maui. So we are in episode 279 today. Like I said, we do the show live every weekday. And on Thursdays, we have a couple of topics we'd like to hit. Our general gun stuff topic. Today we'll be talking about, gun cleaning stuff. And then we'll be talking about training, specifically how to sight in a rifle or a pistol. And then on Thursdays, we always talk about shooting events that are coming up, basically checking out the calendar over on gunchannels.com. We do daily things every day, a gun shop, a gun of the day, movie of the day. So before we get into all that stuff, we usually like to take a break at the beginning of the show, see if anything happened overnight, anything worth talking about.
Yeah, I got a couple things I want to throw out there. Let's see. One is we got, I went into the email today, and my own fault, I hadn't gone in there for a couple days. But I want to thanks. I have a comment here from Mr. Wright, so thank you. It says, "Hey guys, Mr. Wright here. On the last show, there seemed to be a little debate on the location of BOTAC or BOTASH, depending on how you pronounce it. It was founded and operated in the Los Angeles area quite a time. They recently relocated. Just a moment. To the Las Vegas area. So." Thanks, Mr. Wright, for that clarification. And I also want to thank those that we have a number of submissions for either the daily pop quiz or the Wednesday tactical quiz. And I want to remind people that you need to send in a source to your answer in addition to the question and answer, so we can make sure that everything's straightforward and reduce the amount of complaints. So if you can do that, we certainly appreciate it. And I just generally want to thank Mr. Wright, Cycle Camp, Angry American, Clay, Sean, and Jay Harvey for your emails that we received. Those things will be incorporated into the show, some immediately, some later on, kind of depending on what they are. Also want to mention that if you do not want either your online name or your real name mentioned in the show, please say so in the email. Otherwise, I'm going to assume it's okay to use your online name if I'm aware of it. So, and with that, I think that's all I have for housekeeping type things.
Right on. We got Smeggy jumping in. Maybe he's got his mic on, maybe not. And we had Matt's chat last night, right? It was Wednesday. It was pretty interesting.
What the hell? I thought I unmuted. Sorry. Hey guys, how's it going? I must have double tapped. Apologize for the late start. I had to be poked, but I think I'm good now.
It's that kind of afternoon. I was logged out on waffles and whipped cream, so yeah, I was napping before the show also.
We seem to have a lot of nappers. That seems to be a common trait on the Daily Gun Show.
That's how we keep our energy up for the show itself, though.
Ah, okay.
Well, it's not quite working yet. I haven't quite kicked into gear. But, no, that's because, I mean, they say that, all of the highly intelligent people, don't just sit and waste the whole night away freaking sleeping.
No.
So they just like take naps and stuff. That's what all the like super smart inventors and stuff did. They worked when they had energy and they slept when they were tired. Problem solved.
I take 20-minute naps. So that's what I do. I pass out occasionally.
Are you really trying to put yourself in the same category as those geniuses, inventors?
You got to be like them to be like them. So yeah.
I would say yes. I mean, I'm a
so like Edison
who invents stuff. So I guess that makes me an inventor.
Genius
Mr. Brown.
Speaking of genius inventors, we did some science earlier today, and we used waffles and whipped cream to prove scientifically that the Daily Gun Show has got more going on than those other live, quote unquote, live gun shows that are out there. All right. So anyway, we had Matt's show last night. It was pretty good. Top 5 truck guns again for some reason, and then had some pretty good chats though. And then dug up one of Matt's old what'd you call those? I don't know what to call it. Old gem, I guess, of a chat he had on Desardi's channel a long time ago. Anyway, it's kind of neat reminiscing last night on Matt's chat. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, then check it out. He does that show on Wednesdays all the time. Otherwise, I guess we can dig into the show then. Nothing else happened. I know some gun-related stuff happened. You guys were all talking about it in the chat earlier in the lobby, but I don't have it all off the top of my head. But well,
yeah, I did happen to catch the audio flashback of Matt, and I thought it was quite funny.
The stud ring part
of him responding. I'm not going to say what it is because we try to keep this a family-friendly show.
So that was found. I know we talked about that a while ago. Yeah, I didn't watch Matt's, but
yeah, it's about 37 something minutes into the Desardi show called Gay Marriage or something like that from like 5 years ago. It took me a while to find it, but I found it. And yeah, I missed the desk pop. There was an off-air desk pop. I don't know if we're talking about it or not, but I jumped out of there thinking they were going to do it in the lobby, and then they did it off air.
What exactly is a desk pop? I don't know what that is.
There's this movie, like a buddy cop movie. It's like a comedy, and one guy is like a dummy, and the other guy is frustrated because he's a gung-ho cop, and he gets taken off because he does something stupid. He gets taken off the front line. So they're in an office or whatever you call like the office part, like Barney Miller, right?
Yeah.
Being a cop in an office. And these other guys come up and tease the one guy and tell him, you haven't done your desk pop yet and all this. So the guy shoots his gun off in the air, just shoots it up into the ceiling. And then his chief comes by or whatever and takes his gun away and gives him this wooden gun for most of the movie. So it's like what do you call it? Movie joke or whatever.
Okay, so he kind of has a Barney Fife sort of thing.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, they trick him into it though, right? So he thinks that like it's a rite of passage, like everyone has to do a desk pop.
Yeah, it would be like if the truck stop guys came over and talked Barney Fife into shooting his bullet off into the ceiling, and then what's his name came by and took his gun away. But yeah, Will Ferrell, thanks. Also, Moon made a desk pop patch. Looks like a bathroom sign kind of, but it's a desk pop. Anyhow, so we've been talking about it. We're doing the super chat and stuff to, $500. Matt will do a desk pop. He's got a window right by his desk and then a tree out there. So we shot into his tree, I guess, to see if it would appease everybody in the off air.
Well, now you let it out of the bag.
What? Yes, what it was.
You could have had that suspense, like, did it happen? Did it not really happen? Was it just imaginative?
I could be making it all up because it wasn't recorded or anything. Anyhow, that'll be something to look forward to in Matt's chats, I guess. We could advertise Matt's chat. He doesn't, well, I guess he does advertise our show. So, yeah, watch Matt's chats on Wednesdays. Anyway.
As for news, there was one thing I saw where a guy and his son were home when 3 people broke in, and the son used an AR-15 to defend them, and he ended up like shooting 3 of the invaders.
You're talking about what happened last week already?
Was it that long ago? I just saw it a couple days ago, but
Well, a couple days ago. But what's neat is that's in the same. Well, no, it's neat. It's a small world because that's in the same town that our engraving is done, where we had the coins made.
Wow, small world.
Yep.
Yeah, I like it was an etched ordnance.
Yep.
You know, I feel like breaking out in song right at this moment.
Please don't.
It's a small world,
Yeah, please don't.
after all.
Family friendly. Not. We don't. Let's think of the families.
It is
All right. Well,
a small world.
This is episode 279. So we're going to be digging into gun stuff, and the first topic today is gun cleaning stuff. So where do we want to take this one?
Well, I can think of a couple directions. We can take it as far as, range stuff versus home stuff, versus types of tools, versus what I'm going to call it the lubricant wars. I mean, there are just a number of directions to take it.
I would go with just stuff you have for cleaning. So I'll go ahead and say I have a couple of cleaning mats so that, all the stuff, all the oils and the residue and everything don't get all over the table. They just get onto that mat. It's one of them neoprene things, got the exploded view of, I have an AR, an AK, and a CZ75. So I have 3 of them. So that's something that I would recommend for cleaning so you don't get your stuff like all over a nice wood table or something. And then, I don't know, I don't really have much fancy stuff. I use a bore snake, and then like I have some patches and Q-tips. I don't have any like fancy cleaning tools or anything.
I guess I started in some ways I'm doing it the El Cheapo way. We get a community newspaper that you get it whether you want it or not, and it comes to the door. And I always save a few copies for cleaning my guns, so I spread those out, 5 or 6 sheets thick on the table, so I don't have to spend anything on the cleaning mats.
It doesn't soak through even if you put down, like, I guess putting down 5 layers or whatever is good, but I would think the paper would kind of soak up the oil and then it would still get down onto the table.
And that's why you just have to put it. I mean, it does suck up the oil, but that's why you have to put it plenty thick. But again, it's going to the garbage whether I use it or not, so why not put it to some use?
Well, it's nice. Then you could use it to start fires and the oils might help it burn better.
Exactly. So if you got a burn barrel going in the backyard, that's a good way to get them started.
Well, that's what I use newspapers for that are unsolicited.
With absolutely no guidance, I started off using the rods, the aluminum rods, simply because that's what I used when I was in the Army. So I figured, well, rods work then, they must still work because they're still selling them. And then for my long guns, I worked into the, I really like the bore snakes. Now I realize that's a love-hate relationship for some people, but I find it much easier to use, and as long as you inspect your barrel afterwards, which of course you should do regardless of what method you use, it seems to work plenty fine. And of course, now this next part, which is more of a not scientific thing, it's really more of an opinion thing, is whether you use a CLP or you use a cleaner and then a lubricant is like, what's your favorite color? You just simply use what you feel most comfortable using. But the other tool, which my son has, which is it's a bit of an advancement, kind of up there with the bore snakes, is he has it's a cable rather than a piece of cloth material that has a wire brush on it. And you pull that through, and you can coil up the cable, which is nice. But you also don't have to run it through the washer and dryer when you're done. You simply take a paper towel, wipe it down, the excess oils, and coil it up, and you're done. I think that's like a little Otis kit.
Yeah, actually, that's I do have one of those as well. I forgot about that, but yeah, I have that, and it's the kit I got was specifically for like AR-15. I mean, you can use it for other stuff, but the reason it's like the AR one is it comes with what do they call it, the bone tool or something. It's supposed to like clean the bolt and stuff, and it's kind of nice. Like you just stick it in there and twist it, and it like scrapes all the stuff out if it's kind of hard to clean.
Right, and there are other variations of that bone tool, but they all kind of work similarly. As they get into the areas that you, with just a rag or a Q-tip, you might be able to reach it, but you're really not going to get the carbon out of there. And they really do a good job of trying to scrape some of that excess carbon out. You're never going to get it all out, but you at least get the big chunks out.
What gun are you talking about? ARs? What are you talking about not being able to get carbon out of?
Like the bolt specifically.
Yeah, I said with
the bolt carrier, I should say.
Yeah, bolt carrier group, that with the specialized cleaning tools, you can get the majority of the carbon out of it. Not all of it, but certainly most of it.
Well, I'm going to suggest you can get all of it out of there. It's not that difficult.
Well, if you want to start using, specialized cleaners, ultrasonic cleaners and stuff like that, yeah, you can get real deep cleaning. I'm just talking about you get home from the range, you want to give it a quick cleaning, get it back in the safe. That level cleaning versus I'm not going to shoot it for several months or maybe even longer. I want to do a deep cleaning and then put it away.
No, I disagree because I get the carbon off of mine all the time, and I don't find it to be some kind of job that can't be done for sure. I definitely don't leave carbon on my gun.
I love to take a flashlight to the inside of your bolt carrier group minus the bolt.
All right. So I think you brought up a good point though, having the like the away kit and your home kit. I got to throw a couple of videos in here, just doing a quick search on the channel. This one's really old from just a bunch of, this is kind of a messy range bag / cleaning kit thing I had going on a long time ago. But then I usually keep all my solvents in like a toolbox. I keep all the solvents together, and then I keep all the tools and brushes and stuff separate, just because I've got enough of them to have 2 toolboxes now. So that way I can have one toolbox with, the dry stuff, I guess, and then one toolbox if something busts open, it doesn't get all the, towels and Kleenexes and, or what do you call them, the Q-tips and that kind of thing all wet. But I do like to have a kit that I bring with when I go to the range. It's good to have stuff for yourself and for others, right? I mean, you can have just as miserable a time at the range if your buddy comes along and doesn't bring anything and has their gun mess up, and then they're just sitting there pouting all day because their gun's screwed up. Having some tools for any of that, potential, I think is worth having. And then I usually put my good stuff in my travel kit or what I'm taking to the range with me, and then just the accumulation of other stuff tends to gather, I guess, at the home, in the home kit. And I don't bring a lot of solvents. I just bring a usually Slip 2000. It's a good all-in-one lube and cleaner.
Yeah, I like using Slip. I got one of those little, promotional, like the little tube, like a one-time use kind of thing, and I used it and was like, oh wow, that's pretty neat. So their marketing worked. I liked it.
So toothbrushes, brass brushes, I definitely use a lot of toothbrushes. Kind of use them once they're done being a toothbrush, turn into gun brushes or cleaning brushes.
Yeah,
I just use the same one, It's wakes you up in the morning.
I have toothbrushes, made out of soft bristles, and I got toothbrushes that are brass. Then I also have toothbrushes where they're real thin to get into some of the cracks and crevices, especially when you're trying to clean the size of a feeding ramp or something that's just a very small area, but you get carbon building up in there. And you can rub it all day with, solvents and it won't come off. You give it a couple of swipes with a little brass brush, that's made for the right size, and it comes right off.
I like those green army brushes that they give you that are sort of like a toothbrush on one side with a little curve on it, and then the other side is like you're saying, it's just really stiff bristles, but 1 or 2 rows wide only.
Right.
So it's really narrow and it can get places. Those things are super heavy duty, so they usually held up to the solvents better than a regular toothbrush. And I guess it depends. Most of the time I try to get a firm toothbrush anyway for when I'm brushing my teeth, but then a lot of people like them soft ones, and those are about useless on a gun. I think one of the reasons I go for the stiff ones is because then by the time I'm done using it, it's still got some life in it to actually be useful on a gun. You know what I mean? If you get those soft ones when they start out being soft, you're just You can
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I've actually used my soft brush. It just came. I had to, in order to get the one with the brass, it came with a soft one, so I couldn't just buy the brass one. So that's how I ended up with it.
See, we got a comment out on the YouTube side saying that pipe cleaners are good also. I've never used pipe cleaners.
They cost too much. Every time I get some, like I'll find some every once in a while. I like to snoot around, what do you call it, dig around into the like the bargain bins at gun shops and stuff, and that's where I'll see things like that. So I've got pipe cleaners before because I do like them, but they're like one-time use. So buy a thing of pipe cleaners, I don't know how many's in there, 20 or something. 5 seconds later, they're all used up and gross, so throwing them away. So they're just too expensive for me to buy. But if I can get them for like a nickel or a quarter, which I've done before, I definitely like having them.
Well, that's where, like, just as an example, like on an AR-15 bolt, I'll take a Q-tip and I'll put it in isopropyl alcohol or whatever cleaner you want, depending on how dirty it is, and I'll put it in there and I'll just slowly twist it where I can see the white cotton, or the now dirty cotton, in the slot where the firing pin would come out because it's already been removed. And I just keep, because Q-tips are cheap. And I just put a number of Q-tips until the Q-tips come out looking, acceptably clean, and then I'm done.
Now, do y'all do what I do? I have it like kind of mostly figured out, but they change it once in a while. But like I go to the dollar stores and find the good Q-tips at the dollar store, where it's like substantial cardboard in the Q-tip part, or I guess the
handle part,
and then enough cotton in the front that it's still worthwhile. Because some of those dollar store ones, I mean, it's technically a Q-tip, but it ain't. And then other ones are like $5 for a thing of 100 or something, and I just can't throw that kind of money because I know I'm throwing those things away. So I try to keep track of which dollar store has the best ones, or do you guys just go to the regular store and buy the brand name thing?
No, I get mine from the dollar store. That's a good place for Q-tips.
I don't remember the brand or anything of what I used, but yeah, there's been times in the past where I've purchased some that ended up being really crappy, either that there wasn't enough cotton, or they were actually a little bit shorter than your standard Q-tip of what I'm used to. And length matters when it comes to Q-tips, when you're trying to get down into spaces. So I just try not to buy them from the same place once I realize that, oh, that's the place that sells the crappy ones.
Yeah, the shitty ones. And y'all buy your supplies at gun shows. Have you done that before?
I've always bought mine at the local gun store.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It depends, I guess, on how much you're using them. But I think you can. I don't even know if you save money at a gun show. At least by me, the gun shows, you might have more options. Like you might find more variety at a gun show, especially one of those tables that's like a bunch of dental instruments and cleaning supplies and brushes. And I can usually find more, I guess, specialty type of thing or stuff that the shops don't have. And then I'll buy that stuff at the gun show. But I agree with Dano. I like to buy my stuff at the shops if I can. For sure, if it's in like a dollar bin. If I can buy old cleaning supply, like somebody brought in a box of cleaning stuff because they don't use guns anymore or something, or they've upgraded or whatever, and the gun shop is selling it at the bargain pile, I'll definitely buy that. But even if it's just some solvent or something, I'll try to get that at the gun shop because that's one of those things that they do make some markup on. And even though it's not a ton of money, that's 40% return on for them instead of like a 10%. So I'm going to keep those places in business.
And if you like your gun shop, you want it to stay in business, and in addition to just buying guns, you want to make sure that because like McDonald's, they're not making, what's keeping them in business is not really selling the hamburgers. It's the shakes, the soda pop, the French fries, the cherry pie. So as much as you can, as long as it's it's still reasonable, and try to buy some of those other things at the shops that you like, that you would want to see in business for when you want to buy a gun down the road.
So Raphael on the gun channel side is saying the Walmart generic brand is good. I don't know if I've ever bought them at Walmart, but I should think about that because I bet you they are cheaper there. I usually just think dollar store for cheap stuff. Then they're talking about using syringes. insulin syringes. No, that's way too small for me. I go to the horse supply, or whatever they call, like the pet stop, or whatever you call, like the feed store, I guess, where you can buy like hay and tackle, or what do you call it, tack for a horse. And you can buy syringes there that are for horses, and they're more like, I don't know, as big as your fingers. So they're way bigger than an insulin one. And they don't have any, they sell them to you. You can get needles right away, big giant horse needles. And I've used those before for lubing and stuff, for all kinds of different mechanical things besides just pumps.
Well, let me ask you a question about that, because I've often wondered, I can't think of anything that I can't lubricate with the tip of a Q-tip. What is it that they're lubricating?
Oh, it's not like I use it very often. One time I had this fan motor that I was trying to lube, and I stuck a bunch of frog lube in the syringe, and then used the needle to just apply it way down into the fan.
Okay,
But
it's like in some of my pistols, like the rails on the slide, yeah, it's too thin for a Q-tip. So I just take a drop of lubricant and turn it upright, and then like gravity pull that drop all the way to the bottom. So,
it's something you could do with a toothpick or something, or a dental pick. But I mean, they don't cost nothing to buy a bunch of needles. I think it's like $5 for a big box of needles, and then $7 for a big box of syringes.
I wondered if it was maybe I just didn't have the type of gun that needed it.
Oh no, I think it's just when I use them for other things. So instead of buying one for some rip-off price, I'll just go to like the feed store or whatever and buy a box of them that they use for horses, like say for almost nothing. I just figured I'd bring that up because you guys are talking about using insulin needles, and those things are so tiny and the needles are so short. The needles are like a hair. I mean, they're supposed to be comfortable or whatever, and they're only injecting a little bit of insulin, I guess. Those might work. I use those for fishing, but for stuff around the house and whatever, I use the big horse needles. They're still sharp and everything. It's just that they're about as big around as a toothpick. So, you know, they're not anywhere near something you'd ever stick into a person.
Okay.
What do you guys
for firearms?
You know, these little plasticky things, since we're talking Q-tips and pipe cleaners, you ever use these things for like, instead of dental floss, they make these little plastic things with a toothpick sort of thing at one end, and then it holds your dental floss at the other end?
Yes.
And then they make some things which are like just fancy toothpicks of different shapes and what, made out of plastic, but are like disposable. I've used those a lot. They're not great, but just every once in a while, like picking a piece of, well, I get sand and stuff all the time, like just picking a piece of sand out of somewhere where like a brush just ain't doing it, like the bristles are just going by. Those things are pretty nice, and then you don't have to worry about scratching or anything like with a dental pick. You know, you might have to be concerned about scratching it. Oh, you can't just buy insulin needles? I thought everybody could buy insulin needles.
So, but can you think of an example in a firearm where somebody might want to use a needle?
No, just lubing, like you said. You mean if you got your frog lube or some kind of a paste type of lube or actual grease, and like say you can either squirt some grease out onto a toothpick or a dental pick and put it where you want, or just have it in a syringe. And then depending on how you keep your cleaning stuff, especially with these people that have their cleaning stuff just out on a desk or a table or whatever, where they don't have to worry about putting it away, you don't have to worry about that syringe being squished, then, you know, grease stays in the syringe just fine. So you just squirt out a bunch of grease into a syringe, and now it just becomes a better applicator, just like an old oil bottle, you know, with the long tip. Like I say,
I'm just trying to imagine, like going back to the Q-tip, like the rails on an AR. I've never had any problem applying grease to a Q-tip and then not leaving just, you know, because you can tell by the reflection whether there's any grease there. It doesn't have to be thick. It just needs to be there to put the thinnest amount of grease there.
Yeah, well, grease is, I think of it as like a paste, where you're thinking oil, I think, because you're talking about when the surface tension makes it kind of, you know, suck down to the metal.
You know, I like to use, you know, gravity because it's free. So if I can apply it to one end of the rail, hold it upright, and then with gravity, pull the drop all the way down through the rail.
Cave Davis saying he found a bag of what looks like Q-tips, but they're on a wooden stick, 200 of them for $5. I know exactly what you're talking about. They're like thinner than a chopstick, or like one of those skewers maybe for like shish kebabs or something. But there's a Q-tip at the one end, and I don't know if those are what those are actually for, but I've used those before too. I'm sure I didn't pay $5 for 200. If I bought them, they were less than $1 or less than $2. But pretty
I've
handy.
seen those as well. And the only reason I haven't used them is because I'm cheap.
Yeah.
but definitely having a longer handle is definitely a whole lot more convenient.
And it's more, having that wood on there makes it so you can actually use it. So imagine if you were trying to like de-Cosmoline an SKS or some other rifle.
Yeah.
Like, I'll bet you having a set of those wooden Q-tips would do the trick. You know, when you got some things like down in a handguard or something, and it's saves you from having to take something apart or something.
Yep.
No, the other thing is with the cheap ones, since we're talking about the minutia of Q-tips here, I like the ones that are decent, because you get the ones that are too cheap and then you're leaving cotton everywhere, and that drives me nuts too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's also a function of depending on the type of firearm that you're looking at. You know, some firearms tend to have more sharp edges where they tend to snag the cotton off the tip. Some others tend to have rounded edges or deburred edges where it doesn't.
We just got another tip here. Chris says denture brush will have a rubber spike at the one end and a heavier brush. So I'm going to start looking at denture brushes. Not sure what Tack's saying. I think he's saying something about his show at 9 o'clock. So a couple hours, Tack will be doing his show.
Yep.
All right, so I'm kind of reading the comments here, and okay, so another thing I was looking at in my messy ass bag here. This is back when I had them in like almost like a tool bag, and this was just a lot of crap I used to carry, or like it had accumulated in my bag. I shouldn't say that I like intentionally stuck all this stuff in here. I had some basics in there, and then over time it just accumulated, and I figured I'd turn the camera on to clean it all out and see what all kinds of crap had gotten into that bag. I don't know if you see there's a couple of the like surgical clamps. You guys go for that kind of stuff when you're cleaning, or in your cleaning kit, I guess I should say.
You know, I don't have them, and I know, and I've seen that you do, but I'm not sure what I would use them for.
Yeah, again, it's not something like, you know, to take apart an 1811, you need them, or like when you're doing a Glock, you need them. But every once in a while, if you're talking about that like spring that holds the mag catch in on a Glock, if you're trying to pull that out, you know, having a bent tip, strong surgical clamp can sometimes be better than, I don't know, nothing. But then again, having a bent needle nose pliers is better for it. So anyway, it's just one of those things that I have them laying around, and once they're like to a point of being like abused to where I'm not going to use them for first aid anymore, or any kind of application for like the dog or something, then you know, once they're kind of binged up or something, then I'll throw them into my tools, and then they'll just become a tool. I used them a lot when I was working with in real life, like with tools, because they're, you know, the ultimate skinny finger to be able to get down in to catch something, or, you know, get a piece of nut or something. And every once in a while that'll happen on a gun. You know, you'll get especially on an AK where you've got a big channel and a bunch of hollow space in there, or some other guns, you know, will have some hollow spaces here and there. And of course that's where a washer is going to go, or that's where the little freaking nut is going to go off of your optic when you're putting it on, right? And that's where these things, little magnets, having like right next to that, I have just kind of a cheap screwdriver, like a small screwdriver type of thing. I'll usually magnetize the shit out of those with a magnet. You know how you just rub it up and down the shaft,
yep,
and it'll turn a screwdriver into a magnet. Having those kind of things is handy for, like I say, when you get that weird washer or that E-clip fall somewhere.
Now you mentioned, I think you mentioned hammer springs. So this is just a little bit off topic, but it's still about guns. I'm going to ask, do you have a tip for confining the hammer springs on an AK so you don't get snake bit?
Yeah, in fact, that was a good one just the other day. I forgot where I seen it, but it's pretty good. Just take a 12 gauge husk that is shot out and put that over there. Squish it a little bit, and it'll fit right on there, I think. I've seen a video where a guy did that. Thought that was pretty clever.
I'll have to make sure I pick one up next time I go to the range.
Or, you know, anything that size. So I imagine, you know, anything really could be that. Something that's about that size, made out of plastic or something, or even paper, I suppose.
Yeah, but that's an excellent example of how you can repurpose something that was designed for one thing and get used for something totally different.
Now, that's another thing. I don't know if everybody does, but I'll usually have like a couple of 22 Magnum cases, and then maybe I don't know, something else like a 338 or 357, just empty case laying around. Not intentionally, but if there's one laying around, I usually don't try to go out of my way to throw it out of the bag, because I've used those little pieces of things as sacrificial pieces sometimes, and just smashing it into something every once in a while, cutting a piece of it off or something. So I found those to be useful just to have around for those weird times.
Now, have you ever taken a piece of brass and put it on the charging handle of an AK to kind of give it a little bit of extension, or do you think that's just a tactical thing?
Well, no, I do that all the time. That's not tactical at all. It works, and it's super easy. You just stick it on there and smack it on, and it stays. You don't have to do anything fancy. Literally just jam it on there, and it stays on there like if it was welded on.
What calibers generally work best?
Well, 7.62 by 39 is the only one that works, I think. I don't know. I've never tried it on a 74, but 39, just jam it on there. Any of them. Just grab one that looks cool so it doesn't look stupid on there.
I mean, I've seen it.
Lesson date code or something.
I realize we're getting off the cleaning topic, but still gun related.
Yeah, well, we got a bunch of viewers, so thanks everybody for showing up and watching. I think we're going to move along just for the sake of the show, but we try to touch on these topics each day just to get the topic out there. If you're going to have a discussion at the gun shop or at the gun range, it gives you something to talk about. Hey, these guys on the podcast, we're talking about Q-tips. It's just a way to keep conversation going, and hopefully look at things that are not on the just what the news is feeding us. So if you'd ever like to participate in the scheduling of the show, on the second day of the month, we get together with our Patreon supporters and we actually schedule the show out for a month ahead of time. Or anybody can send us an email at any time. It's dailygunshow@gmail.com, and you can let us know any ideas you might have for topics or stuff that we talked about that you'd like us to add back onto or something. So we'll move on to the next topic of the show today. Is going to be our training segment, and specifically how to sight in a rifle or a pistol. So kind of the same topic. We're talking about maintenance and that kind of thing. But before we do, we'd like to feature one of the members over at Gun Channels every day between the first and second segment. Today we're featuring SeanPwnery, one of the, the actual, what would we call him, like the superstar winner of the daily quizzes.
He's I would put him as the co-star, because Angry American is right there, and they've often been neck and neck.
Yeah, the gap is widening, and even with Sean helping you out by giving you questions, so he's kind of taking himself out. So he's definitely the undisputed at this point heavyweight of our tactical pop quizzes. But in addition to that, he's been running the Good Morning Gun channels to help keep the early day chat going with the various people that are out there chatting, as well as always there to offer advice and suggestions for people who have gun-related questions, really. So yeah, Sean's definitely one of the kind of people I don't think he was around when we built Gun Channels. At least he wasn't jumping into the chats and making himself known back then. But that's definitely the kind of person we built Gun Channels for, somebody who's interested in participating at whatever level and keeping the conversation about guns going. So thanks, Sean, for all you do, really.
He's a very intelligent, and I'm sure he would never describe himself as such, but he is a very experienced individual. He's also very mild-mannered. He doesn't necessarily bring his experiences and/or knowledge and to just put somebody out there. He's very, unless you happen to know, like I've known him now for virtually, that is, for several years. Yet I just found out recently that he was attacked and fought off and killed a bear in Alaska. And it was a brown bear. He killed it with his 500 Magnum while he was fishing. And I mean, so there are experiences that he has had that he doesn't necessarily throw out there. That it took me years to figure this out. Well, not figure it out, but until it came out, until it comes up. He's just a very reserved person, and I really admire that about people who have, whether it's knowledge, experience, intelligence, whatever, where they don't feel the need to throw it out there. It just comes out when it's appropriate. And I think that's a really great aspect of SeanPwnery, as well as he's a regular contributor to the Tactical Pop Quiz, as well as Angry American. They're probably the two most common people that help me out with that, along with a handful of others. and he's a great addition to gun channels.
Yeah, definitely good guy. I like him a lot. Fun to talk to. Has his own interests. He's always willing to talk big bore revolvers or reloading or video games or whatever.
Right on. So thanks again, Sean. And now we'll dig into the training segment of the show. How to sight in a rifle or a pistol.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, with pistols,
you buy it and you can take it out and then you don't have to do anything, because we really, for pistols, there's not much to sight in. I mean, unless we're talking about adding an optic to it, they're pretty much sighted in when you buy them.
No, the only time that I've seen that sort of thing, excuse me, is people who are doing competition accuracy type shooting, where they're literally trying to put a hole in a hole, where they're making those micro adjustments, whether it be for windage or elevation, whatever. But in pistols, it's pretty rare that thing sort of comes up, because out of the factory, 99% of the time that the sights are going to be better than the shooter.
Yeah, but still, I mean, if it's consistent enough. I mean, I agree, most of them come pretty good nowadays, but you never know. There might be something you have to adjust the windage a little bit on or something. So it definitely is something you might need to do, is sight in a pistol.
Well, so when we're talking pistols, I guess we have to get started somewhere. I think we can knock them out easier. There's not much to adjust anyway. You leave your front pretty much how it is. Back in the olden days, you used to take a file to your front sight blade, but that's not so much a thing anymore. So you basically buy your gun and it has sights on it that you're going to dig or deal with, and or you buy new ones. And when you buy them, you're either going to buy the height that you want. So you've figured out what height you wanted and you bought them there. But basically, once you put your front sight on, it's there. And unless you put it on incorrectly or it got hit or physically moved or something, you know, there's not much maintenance to that front sight. Your rear sight more than likely is not going to be adjustable, I'm assuming, unless you're talking about a recreational gun or a hunting gun, in which case they might have an adjustable component to them. But for the most part, you're going to get your adjustment through your rear sight, and you're going to be just drifting it back and forth. Again, up and down. There's not much on a combat sight or a target sight.
If it is a dovetail sight, you can simply push it over a little bit.
Right. So you can do that yourself. Now, I don't necessarily recommend it. Guns are all different. Some guns have crucial components up in the upper part of the slide. Some are nothing. So depending on the gun, you can take like a brass punch, brass being a softer metal than steel, so that you don't scratch anything or bend anything or peen anything. And then you just sort of tap with a medium small size hammer. Once the slide is fully supported, you can tap it. A better way to do it, though, is with the screw force instead of a tapping force, because you get less chance for it to peen and less chance to slip or hit something or go too far. So
significantly greater control.
Definitely. And those are going to cost you something. I don't know, anywhere from 80 used, 100 something new, up to a lot more than that maybe. For basically a big square fixture made out of metal with a bunch of little bolts that come into it with butterfly screws or something, and you've seen them. They sort of clamp onto the slide, and then once the thing is completely clamped to the slide and it's like becomes one part of the slide, you then can push back and forth your rear sight. But that's about all there is, and I would not recommend buying that unless you have a lot of pistols and you're always fiddling with them or changing sights a lot. Instead, I would just take it to the shop, and most of the time, if you buy your sight, they're going to do that for you for free, or charge you very minimal, just whatever hours or time it takes for the guy to do it. There's not usually a cost for that as much as just the time you're taking from their shop guy. And again, you're usually not talking about a big difference there. Most handgun sight radiuses are so small, and people are not looking for bullet inside of a bullet. They're looking for baseball. Most of those are good to go. So I think unless you guys want to add something to that, I say we move on to rifles.
Yep. And before we go into long guns, I think there's two different discussions we can have here. One is the distance of zeroing it, and that's one discussion. And the other one is getting it on paper if you're not on paper from the start.
With a pistol, though? I mean, pistol.
No, I mean with a long gun.
Okay, sorry. So you're talking. Well, are we talking iron sights or are we talking optics? Iron sights, again, are usually going to be attached to the gun unless something happened or you literally put this gun together from parts of 4 different guns. Even then, these things are built with interchangeable parts for the most part. If you got a lever action or an AR or something, and you put, even with an AR, you might have some issue. But with any kind of lever action or bolt action, you slide those sights on, they're pretty much going to be there as far as being on paper. You know what I mean?
But if you have something where it's like, as an example, the front sight post, you screw it down into position. Well, in addition to securing it, you're also changing the elevation.
For sure. So when we're talking ARs and AKs, now we're getting into a lot more variable in the front and rear, and it gets to be a little annoying. Actually, in the rear of an AK, you don't have much, so your sightment is actually up front. Your adjustment's up front on an AK. AK tools, I think, are worth owning. If you've got 1 or more AKs, you might as well own a front sight tool. It can be handy for yourself, and you can bend an AK. I mean, you can break it or something. You can not break, but you can bend one to the point where you need to readjust the sights, especially if you drop it a lot. So
I thought an AK sight tool was a rock and a bottle of vodka or something. That's what I've always been told.
That can be done with that, but it makes it a lot easier to have a little gizmo that goes on there and clamps. But yeah, you can definitely drift a front sight on an AK by setting it on a big rock, hitting it with a smaller rock. It will work. It's just not the finite increments that you might get from a screwed.
Yeah. I was just being that cliche, like, oh yeah, AKs are, you just manhandle them or whatever.
Mechanically, it's the same concept. It's just it's a different geometrical shape as a dovetail sight on a handgun, except that it's a round barrel.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to drift it over from one side to the other, if it's off at all.
Now you've got a bore sight tool there you were showing before.
Oh, yeah. I was going to get to that when we got to off of irons.
I think most of the time, though, when we're talking and sighting in something, we're talking about putting an optic on or buying a set of sights and putting them on an AR. In which case, you can pretty much just point the thing. If you really want, you can take the bolt carrier out and just aim your barrel at some target or something off in the distance in your backyard or in your house or whatever, and then set your irons up so that they're basically pointing towards that same point. And that's usually enough to get you out on paper at the range. But what Dano's got there with a bullet that has a laser in it, so it's like the size of a cartridge.
Yep.
What caliber is that? Looks like 308.
Yeah, no, that's a 7.62 by 39. I had a heck of a time with a red dot trying to get it just on paper. There are, I'm sure there are many methods, but the 2 methods that I'm aware of is one is bring the paper target up until you get it on paper. And if that means 10 feet, then that means 10 feet.
That's exactly what I was going to say, right? Because they're talking about laser sights out there in the Gun Channels chat as well. And they're saying, well, Clay's pro them and Cycle Camp is saying, I haven't had very good luck the last couple that I've done. And yeah, I would say, yeah, just get really close to it, see where you're at, and just remember that, like, if it's off by an inch when you're really close, then you're really going to have to crank on it because it's going to be off by, many, many inches once you actually go out to 50 or 100 yards or whatever it is that you're zeroing it for.
And, in my situation, there were 2 different factors. One is I don't live close to my outdoor range where I like to shoot my long guns. And the other is that the cost of this bore sighting cartridge was just a little over $10, I think, if I remember correctly. And
if you remember where you got that, let me know. I'd like to get one for my 7.62 by 39 collection.
Okay. I will have to double check that. I want to say, I'm not sure. I will have to double check it.
No urgency, but, just remember. Let me know.
Yep.
But anyway, that basically throws a laser beam down the center of your cartridge, down the center of your bore. That literally is projecting a laser line that doesn't bend at all. And now you set that thing up on a bench or something or on some sandbags, and then you adjust your red dot, which is hopefully anchored to your gun well. You adjust that to where it's pointed at that laser dot, take the cartridge out of there and start shooting, start zeroing it in, right?
Now, what I did is I paced off 50 yards approximately, and then it took once I got the laser in the chamber, it took less time to zero it at 50 paces to approximately the same impact mark as my iron sights were at that same distance than it did to actually take the rifle apart. I mean, so it was in there. I made a couple elevation changes, a couple windage changes, and I mean, I was off by, when I looked at it initially, I was off by 5-6 feet. There was no wonder I couldn't hit paper. But took it right down, and in like less than 2 minutes, got me right there. Took it apart, put it back in the packaging, because once you use it, it's finished its job. But I found, $10 versus, going to the range and then doing the 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, on out. It just reduced for me some of the inconvenience. But you certainly don't have to do it this way, but it's one of the tools out there. And these have also come down in price. They used to always be, closer to the $100 mark.
Well, even at 50, I was gonna say at $10, it's a no-brainer because that's a couple of rounds of ammo, and it's really not even that much. But even at the 50 mark, I mean, that's a couple of boxes of ammo, depending on the gun you're shooting. And if you're going to be out there just spazzing out, looking like a doofus at the range, not even hitting paper and shaking your head all the time, then you might as well just throw a couple of bucks at that. Every time you change an optic, you can use it again. Plus, you can borrow it over to people.
Right. And I have 0.0 fun zeroing a rifle because, I like to fire 4 or 5 rounds rather than the traditional 3. So a flyer doesn't throw me off as far as what the basic group is really doing. But if I'm in a line with other shooters, now I got to wait 25, 30 minutes until the range goes cold just to check my 4 or 5 shots, then come back, shoot another 4 or 5, and then wait another half hour.
Yeah, that can be annoying in a public range for sure.
So I found it significantly more convenient.
So thanks to everybody on the YouTube side is telling me that they can get those 7.62x39s at a lot of different places. They even gave me the name of one to search out on eBay. Appreciate that. As far as sighting in, though, is that what we're talking about? Is just generally how to sight in one. So again, there's lots of different ways to do it. It's sort of like fishing or something. There's general ways of doing it, which we've kind of covered, but everybody's going to have their own way of doing it. What I'm going to suggest is make a video about it next time you're doing it. And not so much that you have to do a step-by-step tutorial, but an overall, what you're doing. And then people can comment on your video or your blog post or whatever and give you some feedback on it. It keeps that conversation going.
Now, let me ask you a question, G-Webs, is for your AKs, specifically the 7.62x39s, do you have a preference for a 25-yard zero, a 50-yard zero, something else?
No, I usually zero about 50 for my AKs just because I don't shoot them at super long distance, and that way they're going to work for me at the distances I usually shoot.
Right. I mean, I use the same distance for myself for my ARs as well.
Well, I don't really worry too much about zeroing until I get into like something that can reach out further. So like 7.62, like 308, I guess, or a AR. And then I like a 50, 200 or something. So lots of different preferences there, but we won't get into zero. Zero is sort of a different thing. Basically, you're going to deal with the line of sight, which is a straight line, and the bullet, which is going to drop as soon as it starts leaving the barrel. It's going to start being affected by gravity. So you're technically shooting up a little bit, and then you're allowing that bullet's path to kind of go up and then back down again in the usable distance or range, and that's where you get your zeros. So typically you're going to zero in at a couple of different ranges, either a police style zero or a military style zero. The military style zeros tend to gather the longer distance, easier to calculate, where the shorter range ones are a little bit different, more spread at distance, and it just kind of depends on what distance you think you're going to be using your gun.
So if I can throw a little plug out there, you did a video a while back on, I think it was 0 and AR-15 specifically, but you have an absolute great way of explaining it where you show the target and say, okay, so a 25-yard 0, and you show a silhouette that shows impact at 25 yards, 50 yards, 75, 100, 200, blah, 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 whatever. And then at a 50-yard 0, at a 200-yard 0, like you do all the different things. And that is a great way of explaining it and, you know, really showing the outcome, because then you can pick exactly, like you said, what range are you really going to be shooting at. Specifically for, you know, ARs, I like the 50 because it's 0 at 50 and 100, and the most it's ever up is like 2 inches, and the most it's ever down is a couple inches. And then once you're out past 200 yards, it drops down significantly, but I don't ever really shoot out that far.
Right.
So I like having a 4-inch spread no matter what distance they are.
And I think we'll do zeros and thanks. We'll do zeros in another video or another chat, because that can be a whole nother thing, and it gets to be, like I say, a preference thing. And if we're going to dig all into that, like I say, it all has to do with basically where you have to think about your shots and where your shots are all kind of given, and if you want that to be closer or further. But I'm going to suggest we start talking about another thing that's interesting or that's important from
Well, it is important to have a zeroed windbreaker. You want that sighted in perfectly.
All right, men and women, it's time for the tactical. I can't get it going there. There we go. Tactical pop quiz of the day.
FapFest 2017.
All right. So those of you over on YouTube and those of you over on gun channels, feel free to put your cursor down in the text box, limber up your fingers. Z, you're just getting ready, so I'll just be using Smeggy for today. Smeggy, have you seen yet the question and more importantly the answer?
I have seen 42. Now everyone's going to type 42. I know that's a joke I use all the time.
All right. It is a 3-part question. All 3 parts must be in the same line. And I'm trying to think of how. Do you remember our discussion earlier?
As complete a description of the 3 items as possible.
Okay, we'll go with that. I will read the question twice. So here we go. The Smith & Wesson 460 Magnum can shoot what 3 other cartridges? The 460 Magnum revolver can shoot what other 3 cartridges?
.42, 42, and 42 is not correct. It is correct, but not for this question. So we're looking for the answer of 3 different cartridges that will work with that revolver.
Yep. All in one line.
2 in one line.
45 long Colt and 410 is incorrect. 45 Colt, 45 auto, and 545 is incorrect.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Winner. Mr.
Raphael, what the hell? Congratulations, Raphael. It is the 45 Schofield, the 45 Colt, and the 45 Casull. Congratulations, Raphael.
454 Casull. But anyways.
That's Schofield, by the way.
Schofield. Well, regardless of my enunciation, he is the winner. So congratulations. Head on over to the dailygunshow.com/pop quiz, fill out the form, and congratulations, Raphael.
All right, Smeggy, no pressure. Let me hear what you got.
Oh, really? I feel so honored. Well, Raphael, you know, that makes you today's tactical hot shot of the day.
Oh, that gets 2 thumbs up and a full Island Z approval. Very good job, sir.
All right, so we're sending.
You dug deep for that. You dug deep for that, dude.
We're sending Raphael.
No, man, you dug deep. Totally respect that.
He's learned from the best. So we're sending Raphael over to our website, which is dailygunshow.com. We have a page over there where we keep this picture of a patch panel. Got a bunch of patches on there, some that we've created here in Tucson, some that are our designs that we have made. Some of them are from friends like Endo, Every Day, No Days Off. We got BMC Tactical on there, the Haas, USMC, Yankee Marshall. Others that wanted to include their patches on our panel. Then some that Bob and I had bought at gun shows over the years. And whoever wins, we send them over to the patch panel. They pick what they want. Down below, there's a form you can fill out to tell us where you want us to send it. And we thank everybody for playing each day. It's a way that we can say thanks.
And just something, I don't know if it was mentioned beforehand, before that question, but that was sent in by Sean. Speaking of Sean earlier today.
A big bore revolver question sent in by Pwnery? Nah.
Yeah, it's
be kidding.
unbelievable, I know.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Pwnery. We have a number of Pwnery questions coming up in the days and weeks ahead. We've done a number of angry as well as other participants, as well as ones I've created on my own, if you can actually imagine that.
Every once in a while, Dano does his job.
Yes.
All right.
Well,
So,
after the first 100 questions, I got really worn down.
I don't know where do we start this tradition of marking off the stuff on the second line. I never pay attention to the second line, so I'm gonna start knocking stuff out of the top line. Like it's custom.
I see. I have enough confidence in my co-hosts that they can kind of like follow the bouncing ball.
Yeah, but I don't look at that second line very often. All right, so with that, I think we can dig into one of the other topics. Is Dano about to leave us? Are you heading out? Or are you sticking around?
I'll be leaving shortly.
Okay, so why don't we dig into the movie? I don't know if Dano's seen this one, but every day we try to talk about a movie, a gun-related movie that maybe if you haven't seen in a while, to give you a reminder of one that's worth watching, or if you're a youngin', something you ain't seen yet. Today, the movie is a recommendation from somebody in the email one time, and it's the movie Hot Fuzz. It's a cop movie from England.
By the guy, the Simon Pegg and whatchamacall Frost, the guys that did Shaun of the Dead, the two main guys are also in this one.
Has everybody seen this?
Is this?
No.
I have seen parts of it.
Dano, any chance you've seen this one?
I have not seen it in any way, shape, or form. I never even heard of it.
Oh, okay. Oh, I figured.
Dano's in it. What are you talking about, you ass? Dano is actually in that movie.
Maggie, you seen it?
Oh yeah, I've seen it. It's a good one. I really like that guy. I
That's
like his
why
movies.
he's laughing.
So yeah, I mean, basic premise of it, right? The dude, he's like a cop over there in England or whatnot, in like a big city. I don't know if it's London or I forget, but he's like Mr. Action Cop, right? He's always sliding through windows and like catches all the bad guys. Like he's like the best super cop type of thing, and he ends up getting like transferred or whatever to this small little town where like no crime happens, and he's going nuts, and then he thinks that all these crimes are happening, but everyone's just ruling them accidents, and craziness ensues. And I don't want to give it all away, even though it is an older movie, but it's good. It's a real fish out of water type of movie.
Hell of a twist, wouldn't you say?
Norf. But anyways, yeah, good movie.
Yeah, good buddy cop film. Just British style humor. Probably the mid 2000s, mid to late. Do you think it was after 2010? Huh?
Was it that recent?
think?
I thought it was older, but it's possible.
It could be.
I'll look up
And,
the IMDb.
Again, it is definitely in the similar style of cinematic shooting that is Shaun of the Dead. Sometimes there's quick
2000.
cuts. Sometimes there's long stuff. There's a lot of inside jokes and or Easter eggs, referrals to either other things that the movies that they have done or movies that they're kind of taking a scene from. It's definitely, and yes. All right. And Sean out there on the YouTube side says humor is not for everyone. I will agree with you on that, but this one is actually pretty funny and entertaining. I give this one 2 thumbs up.
Definitely 2 thumbs up.
I'm gonna give it 1 thumb up. It was pretty good.
I'll give it a question mark.
Although as far as
And the Frost
gun
guy.
stuff, I mean, was there a lot of gun stuff? I remember the
Mostly
villagers
shoddy
had,
and 9mm, right?
shotguns and stuff. Yeah, I don't remember any like super cool guns or anything. Was there?
No, the cool were the 2 cops. That was the whole cool level. And the big guy, and I'm stepping in it there, is the guy that is now on Into the Badlands. He's the other guy.
I think that Rupan on the Gun Channel side says it best. It has a slow beginning and an amazing ending. Like if you stick with it, the ending's good.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can agree with that. Although I don't know if I
will
call
go
it
with
slow. It's just the beginning. You're kind of just trying to figure out like, what the heck kind of movie is this? Like it's.
I mean, you can
Right,
tell
what
that-
am I watching?
That guy who made it is a filmmaker. He likes making movies, so he did. It's not a bad movie. It's just not as much. I mean, the end is the action. The beginning is sort of the setup and his craft or whatever, making his movie interesting, and then the end is the fun part, the payoff.
Yep, the payoff, the payday. I'll look at it, definitely.
All right, looks like we got Bob out in the lobby or out in the Gun Channels on the YouTube side. Says that he's got bad internet, so he's got good enough internet to watch the show, just not good enough internet to join in the show. So.
Well, it is what it is.
Yep.
I mean,
So-
the honest answer is he's just scared. That's okay. It's all right to be afraid, Bob.
So then, anything else you want to talk about this movie?
Sorry, can you say again?
Anything else you want to talk about the movie?
Like what? These are the guys that did, like I said, Shaun of the Dead. They did Hot Fuzz. They did, what is it at the bar at the end of the world or whatever, where they go on the pub crawl at World's End. Thank you. And then they kind of were both involved in the, what's the alien? Is it Paul? The alien movie where they take the Winnebago across, like literally it would be Bob and G-Webs if they took an alien across part of the Southwest United States.
I thought that
in Bob's trailer.
I didn't know that was those guys. That movie seems more like
well, it's what's his face,
the American
Pineapple Express guy that's in it. You are correct, but both of those guys are in that movie, I believe.
They're in it, but they're less of the creative force behind it.
Correct.
So they're saying everyone in that movie is anti-gun in real life. That's interesting, and that makes me like the movie less. So I'm glad I only.
Well, they are British. I mean, so maybe they've been programmed to respond that way.
Well, that's true, but then there's another level of, what would you say, disrespect that I'll give them when they exploit guns and use guns to make a bunch of money, but then use all that money to bitch about guns. I don't like that. And they definitely use guns in this movie. I mean, they're definitely a gun movie. I'd call it a gun movie.
Well, and do we know that as a fact, or is it one person's opinion, or do we know it to be true?
It's one person's opinion, but he put it in all capitals in one of our chats, so that pretty much makes it.
Probably, it's probably true then.
Yeah.
I've learned that over the years. That if it goes in Stone Guy taught me that if it's in capital letters, it pretty much makes it true.
But I'm gonna suggest we move along.
So that's the gun movie of the day.
Yeah. Try to think of a new movie every day. We've got a couple of them coming up here, but if you'd like to contribute to that part of the show, like I mentioned, we have an email address, dailygunshow@gmail.com. Use that anytime you want. We got a lot of people contributing part to the show, so we appreciate that. It's really what we're trying to do here. It's new media. We didn't decide, hey, we know a bunch of stuff and we're going to disseminate it to the public via a podcast. We're just creating a platform so that everybody can enjoy it. A big portion of that is the live viewers. So that means I want to take a moment here to say thanks. We've had 50 people watching today. That's 54 for a minute there. I think that was a record. Yeah. So thanks everybody who's showing up on a Thursday to listen to the show live. We got a lot of people that listen to it on the podcast. Just paid the bills over there, so it was down for a day or two. Well, I was not aware that the bill hadn't been paid. But we do have some people listening on podcasts. We're always interested to hear from you. So either email us or come through like a lot of people have been doing and leave comments on the videos over on YouTube. We appreciate that because that means you probably had a chance to come by and subscribe to our channel. we would like to get to the 1,000 subscriber mark. So that's a immediate goal we have here. So if you can let people know about the show, we really appreciate it. And it seems like that's paying off. So thanks, everybody. And I think with that, we will go on to the next segment of the show. And that's probably a good point, since we never talk about it, to talk about our Patreon. We do have a Patreon account where we interact with our Patreon supporters. So anybody who contributes like $1 or more to the show has another level of access to us, as well as another channel for communication. So for example, on the second Saturday of the month, we'll get together and schedule the show out for the coming 4 weeks. And our Patreons have a link to that show. Of course, anything that they suggest for the show topics gets mainlined right into our schedule, as well as we've been doing some Patreon only stuff over there. So we appreciate everybody that keeps the show going. Our plans are to do some immediate stuff, like some of the intros and outros, have those done professionally so that the show has a little bit better polish to it, and just package it a little bit nicer. And then we're going to start thinking about some other things we can do to keep the show going. So appreciate everybody who's allowing us to even think like that and make the show get bigger, or let the show get bigger. Should we talk about the gun of the day?
Yeah. What's the gun of the day?
We will screen share. This week we've been screen sharing.
The mighty WASR.
Yeah, it's a WASR. And of course there's a video or an ad in front of it here. We've been doing AK stuff this week, and I've been showing videos from the YouTube channel. Let's see, this one is an old one from 2008. So this one's almost 10 years old already. This is basically, I took a whiteboard and I laid it down on the floor, and I had this WASR-10. So 2008 era WASR-10 came fresh off the from the century, I suppose. And this was a long time ago. So this was a video to show people the components of an AK-47 and just generally how it goes together. And I did not film it with a potato. I probably filmed this with a regular digital camera back then. I don't know, 4 or 8 megapixel maybe. And then it probably had an ability to do video. So in order to try to get it, to work, I laid this whiteboard down on the floor and put the camera on a tripod, and then just reassembled the AK. So I just have it field stripped there. Had to tap the wood part back on. That's kind of weird. Anyway, just going to be assembling it here. So the gun of the day, I guess, is the WASR, a Romanian AK semi-auto, created and made for import to the United States. It came along after the SARS. I don't remember now what the difference was with the SARS, but the WASR stood for something automatic rifle. But anyway, these were designed just for import. So whenever the assault weapons ban happened and then ended, these were, they knew that there was a market here. They designed and made these for us. So they're basically an AK. They're pretty strong. But because they came in such numbers and such a spurt, I guess, there's some quality issues, some production issues for a while there. I think
Did yours have canted sights?
This one here, I don't remember. I don't think I even paid attention to it in a particular video because I was just taking it apart or whatever. This wasn't mine. This is just one I took off the wall and at this gun shop and put this video together.
Definitely the WASRs were one of the cheaper ones, and I would guess one of the most common for quite a bit of time.
Oh, definitely. For they dominated.
Dude, they were like $3.99, weren't they, or something? Something crazy.
Well, you could get a WASR that was unconverted, so it still had the single stack for like $189 at one point. I have a catalog somewhere. One of the things before the internet really started to soup up, you would buy your firearms over the, on, let's say, a mail order via like paper catalogs, like newspaper print, sort of like Shotgun News. Some of the other publishers would make things like Shotgun News that we could pick up at gun shops or at gun shows, and then a couple of the big distributors would send out their own magazines, basically an entire Shotgun News size thing that would come in the mail, but it was just all their sales. It was like their catalog. And yeah, I can remember AKs being relatively cheap, or WASR specifically being pretty darn cheap. again, they came across in big spurts real fast. So I'm sure that they were putting them together like crazy over there, and quality control went down quite a bit just, as a result.
And so that's what you kind of hear sometimes. And I know, you hate that question as far as like, what's a good AK? But that is something I've heard, like, oh, avoid WASRs, they're not assembled well. And it's like, there's way too much in that question to be able to say that. Like, yeah, some of them maybe weren't the best put together, but others of them, depending on who did it, like, are totally awesome. So
Yeah.
Well, if I may add though, if you just said that you could get one for under $200 at that time that was a single stack, did somebody think that they were really getting $1,000 AK for under $200? I mean, to me, that's kind of on the person doing the purchasing, in my opinion. I mean, if you get one that's the double stack for, like you said, $200 or $300, what you were saying, G, and you get a good, then you should be super stoked. I mean, you should be happy and proclaiming the awesomeness of the mighty WASR.
right. Well, I think part of it is then when the people go and buy it on the secondary market, how many of those people got one of those and said, oh, I can, Dremel out the mag well, like that's super easy. So then you got a whole bunch of, home gunsmiths trying to do all the things. And then they sell it, and then it's like, oh, WASRs suck. It's like, no, some dude in his garage sucks. Doesn't mean WASRs suck.
Right. Well, and I also want to add, since we're talking about the legend that is the WASR, basically, what was it? Was it the one stamped with 2014 or newer? I remember people talking about how they had a change in their quality control, and like basically the ones from 14 and 15, like for those 2 years at least, I'm not sure about 16, where they were actually coming out fantastic from the quality control. Sturdy like they always were, but like, thank you, Moon. 78 out there said it was the 2015 ones and 2016. Thank you, sir. Because you know what I'm talking about. That was kind of the hot little number that was going around, was the WASR, if they had that, that newish date stamped on them, because the quality control had improved. The wood was better. Most of the times they weren't coming with canted sights. Trigger springs weren't breaking as easily. I'm trying to think. It seemed like there was one more thing that they had improved that was a big deal to people, and I cannot quite remember what that was. But yeah, and that's just a difference of time. And the company, so I guess that would be Century, like G said, improving their technique or deciding to put more resources forward into quality control. Because if you get one from 2015, 2016, it might not be anything like the one that G got from, or was looking at, from 2007, right? Or perhaps any of the ones in the middle where they were always coming with canted sights and whatnot.
They weren't always. That's the thing. They weren't.
Fair enough. And you know what? That was kind of crude of me to say that too, because it's one of those like internet things. It's stereotypical, but it's not really true. Like an myth almost. And I shouldn't lay that on them like that either.
I think another aspect of
I think that's my God.
WASRs being made and imported, that if there's a million of them, well, you're going to hear more complaints, because even if a percentage of them are all that's wrong, all that are bad, then that's a much bigger number than there are of a gun that they brought 100 of them in, even if none of those are bad. So there's
that's true. If you have 1% of a million is way more than 10% of 100. Like the other place could have, or another thing could be, worse percentage, or even 50% of 100. Like, oh man, the guns are 50% good, but 1% of a million is going to be way more than that. So your likelihood of you knowing someone that had a bad one or hearing about it is a lot higher. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna drop out. So you guys have a good rest of the show, and everyone listening, thanks for listening. Give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you later.
Yes, Maggie.
See you, Mags.
All right, so then I guess that can take us into another segment. That was the gun of the day, so we'll put a line through that. And I think we're towards, we're going to do the shooting events. So I think between the next segment and this one, I will screen capture again and just remind everybody that I'm going to have an extra show tonight. I'm going to do an episode of the I Hate Guns podcast, and it's going to be a special one where people can send in their pictures of their guns and I will judge them. Except I'm not going to do that for nothing. I'm going to do that for money. So we're going to super chat this one, and everyone can have fun paying money to have their guns judged by me. Should be pretty exciting, and we'll do that for about an hour or so between the end of this show and the beginning of the AK-47 podcast, which will be later on this evening as well. So we'll be talking about AKs into the evening.
All right.
So I don't know where you split 10,000 there. You don't have to spend $10,000, but maybe $10, maybe $100, whatever. Depends on how many guns you got, I guess. So let's see. That'll take us into the events. We'll dig into gun channels here again and head over to the calendar. So at the top of every page of gun channels, there's a small menu there. And if you dig down into the resources segment of the calendar or the resources segment of the menu, you'll see the firearms calendar. And when we open that up, we'll see the things that are coming up on the agenda, and I will screen share again. Good. So we've got the Trinity Tour coming up this weekend in New Mexico. It's not technically gun related, but it is kind of the biggest gun we ever made, at least the first.
Yeah.
And you get a chance.
Oh, and it's still a missile range, and it's off time, right?
Yeah, there's a little museum there, and you can see some stuff about the White Sands. But that's where you meet up, and then you head off and see the actual place where they detonated the first nuclear device. Besides that, on this weekend, we'll see the world's largest gun show. So, Bob, where are you at? Are you up in Tulsa already?
No, I'm actually stuck in Oklahoma until my check comes in. So,
Oklahoma City, you mean?
Walmart parking lot.
Oklahoma City, you mean?
Yeah.
So you're 2 hours away.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And I get my check comes in like on the 1st, so midnight the 31st kind of thing. I'll be hitting the road again.
Midnight on the 31st. So, well, hopefully you didn't miss going to the museum then. The show will still. So I guess you can go to the show on Sunday.
I'm just gonna, yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
You're just going to go to the show on Sunday? Well, the museum isn't open on Monday, so I guess you'll be hanging out in Tulsa Tuesday.
Saturday is the 1st, I think.
Yeah. So I'll be there. I'll be there for the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because like
Right, so
Saturday's the 1st, right? So I get paid midnight the 31st, gas the truck up, and drive 2 hours, and I'm there at 2 in the morning, and then just find a place to park until the morning for the gun show.
Right on.
Nice.
So you go into Bob Beach, go into his first experience at the world's biggest gun show. Then I don't know if he's hooked up with anybody there, P226 Nut or any of the other people from Oklahoma. But if anybody wants to meet him, he'll be there.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to even talk to anybody. This internet thing's just been driving me nuts. I've been having problems with my booster and stuff. And some places you get free internet. There's gun in any title. You can't go to it. I won't mention names, but
That's interesting.
yeah, sucks. But no, it's just that blowing this spark plug on my cylinder kind of screwed my. So, and then ran a little short on gas because I was running into a big headwind and truck burned like huge amounts of gas. I don't want to talk about what kind of mileage I got.
Well, as long as you didn't get swept away by any tornadoes, you're doing good.
Yeah, no, they missed me, kind of. Kind of right windy.
All right, so that's this weekend, and then we got the Knob Creek Machine Gun Shoot coming up the weekend after in Kentucky. After that, we got the St. Louis International Cartridge Show on April 12th. That'll be in St. Louis, obviously. That's a gun show-sized meeting of the International Cartridge, the International Ammunition Association, which is a bunch of collectors of munitions and ordnance. So that would be pretty neat to attend if you're in the area. And if you do, please take pictures because I'm curious to see what that's like. Then we've got the NRA show coming up at the end of April, April 27th in Atlanta. A bunch of Gun Channel's members are going to be showing up there, as well as anybody who's a member of the NRA is invited, and it's free to attend. It's basically all the exhibits, all the, what do you call, like the booths, the displays from the manufacturers and distributors from manufacturers from SHOT Show. And then about 20% of the floor space is devoted to nonprofits and gun advocacy groups and collectors clubs. So it's a really interesting event. Highly recommend going to it. It's worth your time and trouble to get to it. The June 2nd will be the next thing we see, and that's also in Atlanta, the Blade Show, which is a big gun show sized event for knife builders and designers and companies, as well as all their fans. So I know that's becoming more and more of a, what do they call it, like a destination for knife people. We got Outdoor Retailer coming up in July, TriggerCon coming up in July as well, and then another cartridge show in October. So we can see that we've got some items that, we've got the schedule out till the end of the year, but I'm sure there's more stuff happening throughout the middle of the year. We need to get some stuff in the calendar. So if you're familiar with any events, or you're a participant in any of them, or you attend them, or you'd like to, just go over to Gun Channels. Any member can click on Create a New Event. You can put in all these relevant info and then add it to the calendar here. It's available to anybody who's on Gun Channels. If you just scroll down the left side here, the calendar is right over here on the left. So that way you can add something to let people know what's out there and what's coming up.
One of our gentlemen on the Gun Channel side had a question, and I'm not exactly, you were just looking at the page, so maybe you can either help or answer. When he tries to open the Tulsa entries on calendar, is it because he's not the owner of the page that he can't open the entries? He has to look at it in a different manner, correct?
Wait, what happened?
It says private page, you do not have permission to view this private page. And he says when he tries to open Tulsa entries on the calendar.
Oh, I have no idea. We'll take a look at that though. Not in front of everybody.
Okay.
The show, but yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with that. It could be a permission thing. Probably not. Should probably just click on the wrong thing or whatever. I'm not sure where he's clicking either. So, yeah, I'm gonna keep on moving. So I guess that's the calendar this week, and we can we address that every Thursday. So anybody that wants to throw stuff into the calendar, this is the time when we'll help amplify that. I think that's about it though. Looking at the schedule here, we got pretty much everything taken care of. Bob, you've been driving anything new? Keep us up to date on your adventures besides having internet troubles. How else has it been?
Not bad. It's like I say, just lots of weather, bad weather. So.
At any point, did you need to bust out your windbreaker, Bob?
Yeah, no.
So have you had a chance to check out any gun shops or anything along the way?
I really haven't. I've been just cutting it so fine for, trying to make mileage that I haven't had time to do shit. I've driven past lots of them and thought I should stop there, but then it's like, okay, and then I got to pull over and slow down and then speed up, and there goes 10 miles per gallon, and that's how tight I'm running right now.
All right. So
Once and sure to be sure.
Yeah, good to hear that you're still kicking though, and you got all the way to Oklahoma. So yeah, you're within 2 hours of the place now. So pretty darn close.
Yeah, well, I got as far as I could get, and then now I'm kind of stuck for, like I say, for another day and a half.
You'll be just fine, Bob.
Oh yeah, as long as they don't kick me out of the parking lot. Never know,
Well, don't make a scene whenever you do.
I am very, very quiet.
All right. Well, with that, I think we'll end this episode 279. That'll mean we'll be back tomorrow with episode 280. We'll be talking about free guns for each American. We'll be talking about guys that left the big companies and put together their own successful startup in the gun industry. And then we wrap up the week. Of course, all of our daily stuff as well. Looking forward to it. We will see you then.
And so, can you see that, Bob?
I can't. I just don't have the bandwidth.
No worries. I can do that. So we'd like to end the show with a quote. We definitely want to thank everybody that has participated and that will be listening in the future. If you do have the opportunity, please like, share, and subscribe to Daily Gun Show. If you do get a chance, hashtag Daily Gun Show over on Instagram. We're pretty much all over the place, so we're out there. You should be out there too. So for the quote for today, it's from David M. Bennett. A shootout is better than a massacre. And again, thanks to everybody out there. Be safe and aloha.
The guys and gals of GunWebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thanks for watching GunWebsites.com.